Seeing that it's 7 o'clock, we'll open the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for July 8th, 2019. Okay, let's hit the minutes approval and signatures. The minutes, anybody had a chance to review the minutes? The first one I have is Monday, June 3rd, 2019. Anybody have any corrections, deletions, additions? I read through them, I didn't see anything myself.
I was not present.
Nice going, Rob. That's gonna be in the minutes. Do we have to turn this on, or are we all good?
We're good.
Very sneaky. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of Monday, June 3rd, 2019 as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of Monday, June 3rd, 2019, as presented.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the meeting minutes of Monday, June 3rd, 2019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
4.
1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, 4. You didn't count. Sorry. The minute meetings on Monday, July 9th, 2018 of the executive session. Any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Those are to actually release them.
I'm sorry?
You've already accepted those minutes, you just have to release them.
Oh, just vote to release them? All right, do I have a motion to release the minutes of the executive session of Monday, July 9th, 2018?
I'll make a motion to release the minutes of Monday, July 9th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm going to require a roll call vote. Voting on this will be all the members present. Jerry?
Yes.
Kasia?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Bob?
Yes.
And Dan?
Yes.
There's no conflict of interest?
What's that?
I vote on it? Because they're executive session?
We're voting to release them.
Oh, all right. I don't want to be caught again.
All right. And also from the executive session meeting minutes of Monday, October 15th, 2018. It's also to release these. Do I have a motion to release the minutes of the executive session?
I'll make a motion to release the minutes of the executive session on Monday, October 15, 2018.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay, again, a roll call vote is required. Jerry?
Yes.
Kasia?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Bob?
Yes.
And Dan?
Yes.
Okay. 5-0. All right, let's move on to our first appointment at 7:05. Petition number 900, Green Apple Farm, located at 0 and 241 Franklin Street, variance for access via different location. The Halifax Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public meeting on Monday, July 8th, 2019 at 7:05 p.m. in meeting room number 1 of the Town Hall, 499 Plymouth Street in Halifax, Mass. on the application by Green Apple Farms for variance for lot access via a different location than the legal frontage at 0 and 241 Franklin Street, Halifax, Mass. Said property is owned by Bowker LLC and Green Apple Farms 4 LLC of 0 and 241 Franklin Street is shown on the assessors map, 82 lot 1, title reference book 50734, page 191. The applicant is seeking a variance to allow access to the upland portion of the parcel 0 Franklin Street being developed as a passive solar facility, which is blocked by wetlands and other jurisdictional resource areas by using 241 Franklin Street, map 93, lot 9A. Granting this variance will allow the applicant to access the rear of the property with the least impact to the resource areas and associated buffer zones. The requested variance is in accordance with the Halifax zoning bylaws, section 167-10L, area zone residential, petition number 900. And who is here to speak on this, please? And your name, sir?
Is Mike McGonigal with Conoco Engineers and Scientists out of Bridgewater.
Okay.
I'm here to represent Sincarfa Capital, the developer on this project. Sincarfa is seeking relief to look.
The size of the building's the smallest, any smaller, they can't financially support it.
And I do like the fact that they took the time and the effort to answer specifically our question of if in fact, from the jump start, that size building could fit on that lot. Without creating your own hardship, or whatever.
I agree,
Jim?
that's the clincher for me.
Local zoning bylaw section 167-10L to allow for common access through 241 Franklin Street. If I could just bring your attention to this Alta site plan here. The orange outline is the larger Sincarfa or Green Apple Farms LLC parcel consisting of approximately 57 acres. The second parcel here, 93-9A, is 241 Franklin Street. This is 0 Franklin Street. The existing solar facility has been permitted through the Planning Board and the Halifax Conservation Commission in its current configuration. An access easement does exist. A legal easement has been recorded on this particular lot that agrees with this access to the back parcel currently. We have been before the Conservation Commission several times, and we do have a valid order of conditions, but one of the items that came up during the many meetings was the level of impact that would be in this site if we were to access through the legal frontage here at 0 Franklin Street. This green outline you can see is the wetlands that have been flagged for this particular site. This would be the part of the site that would have to be dredged, rebuilt, reconstructed in order to access upland here, to bring a road in to access this development plan. We've had Ivis Environmental, a number of other people advise us on the impacts. We've had civil engineers do hydrology analysis on stormwater management. If you look at the topo here, the topo at this area is about 4 to 5 feet above this unusually flat and wet area. So there would have to be a significant amount of imported fill brought in, drainage structures, in order to control the hydrology in this particular part of the site. So if we're looking at the special site conditions here, I'll just read from a memorandum I quickly put together under special site conditions. Map 82 Lot 1 is 170 feet of legal frontage along Franklin Street, but access to the upland portion of the site from this location is blocked by wetlands and other jurisdictional areas. Approximately 500 feet of wetland resource area would be impacted. That's this area with the red arrows. It stands between the upland and the legal frontage and is required access point of remaining upland approved for the solar installation. Crossing this large expanse of wetland resources would have substantial impacts on wetland resources, habitat, and site drainage if required to be used for access. If we move over to the public good, I mean, how this, if it were to be granted, would impact the public. Again, I just tried to summarize this. This particular site is virtually invisible to abutters, the town. Once it's developed in there, you won't know it's there. It doesn't generate any noise, there's no pollution, there's no sound that comes out of it. Once it's developed, there's an estimated once-a-month small vehicle access that drives in to check on the site, visually inspect it, make sure there's nothing wrong with it, and they leave. Everything is monitored remotely, everything is controlled remotely. So if you talk about traffic impacts, they're negligible. We're talking about if this lot gets developed as a single-family lot, it's going to have a shared driveway that would come off here and then a single-family home. And this shared driveway would extend up to a gate that would access the main site. So we're adding one vehicle a month to drive in there and look at the site. If you look at the impacts all these folks, all the abutters around have seen this project on numerous occasions. We've been, had hearings with the planning board, hearings with the Conservation Commission to this exact site plan. So everyone's well aware what this would look like and what the impacts would be. If we were to be forced to move back over here, now we're generating two different, this access would definitely stay, and there would be whatever impacts there would be with a single-family residence. These impacts here would impact all the wetlands through this site, impact this abutter, perhaps the abutters across the street more so than what is here already. So in our estimation, the aggregate impact of separating these activities is greater than allowing it to share the one existing access that's already been seen and approved by multiple boards with the town, and every abutter has seen it. So we're not asking for anything new from the project. This has been the project from day one. The access has been here from day one. Everyone has seen it, and there's been some challenges. We've worked with abutters on visual screens, for example, here, moving poles around. So there's been a lot of activity to make this site plan work to the satisfaction of the local community and their abutters. That's still in place. So what we're asking for is the legal acceptance of relief on the zoning bylaw to allow that one vehicle a month to pass through here and share this access. If you look at the third, impacts to the intent and purpose of the law, the variance requested from this board, only lot access via a different location from the legal frontage that already exists. Generally, a complete wetland lockout of 97% of the parcel's land is very, very unique. We've got about 1 acre up front here, eliminating the access to the back 56 acres without substantial wetland impacts to access it. This is very unusual. The potential negative impacts to the wetland environment, habitat, local drainage, to the legal's frontage's uniquely flat, sprawling topography are not broadly applicable of the act to nullify the intent of the law and support the public good. So we would argue that it's very unusual to have a parcel of this size to be limited by 1 acre of uplands up front and to have such a flat expanse between its access to the back upland areas for development. Because of the nature of solar projects, once they're developed, there really are no nuisances. There's no traffic associated with it, there's no pollution, there's no noise, there's no outgassing. You don't know it's there. So we feel that once the, of course there'll be the nuisance of construction, but once that's complete, you'll virtually, it'll be virtually undetectable. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that the board may have.
Any members of the board have any questions?
Now, the right-of-way where you pointed out, that's a right-of-way to...
This here?
Yeah,
That's the legal frontage for this parcel. Yeah.
only to that parcel.
To this parcel, its legal frontage to this parcel. The access easement, I'm sorry, you can't really see it here. There's a dashed line that goes around here with some dots, a shaded area. That's an actual access easement that's been created legally and been recorded for this particular parcel to allow for this road.
And who owns that parcel?
This particular parcel is owned by Boker LLC.
It's owned by you guys.
No, it's
It's owned
not.
by somebody else.
It's owned by somebody else.
And they're gonna give you the permission to go on that?
Yes, that's already been negotiated and arranged.
What is the frontage there?
That
at the
is,
easement.
I'm sorry, it says 70 feet, it looks like, 70 feet.
How large is that parcel?
This parcel, I'm sorry, I don't have that written on the plan here, I should. I want to say it's about 2.5 to 3 acres.
So it has a buildable house lot on it?
Yes. In fact, it was under agreement at some point until this controversy
What's
surfaced.
the requirement for the state?
50
I'd have to look it up. I don't know.
Isn't it 150-foot frontage?
What is
No,
it?
it's 50 for an estate.
50-foot too.
What size lot? 52?
Do it.
I don't know off the top of my head. I have to look it up.
Let me see if I have the actual what's the lot size of that particular lot. That was good.
Well, even if it's too small, couldn't get building permits anyways.
We said it's a buildable lot. That's why.
I've got the area of the larger lot, but I have the area of the smaller one, unfortunately.
It's 133,000 square feet, so I can do it.
2.5 acres, 3 acres.
Yeah, okay.
Where's that? Is that, oh, you have the other site plan
Yeah,
package?
the other segment.
So it's a 3-acre parcel. It's a 3-acre parcel.
Dan, any questions? I have a question of, how long of the construction are you talking about that would take to,
The plan was to start in July and to finish up in the November timeframe. October, November. Is that sound about right?
so it's about a 4-month project?
Yeah, runs pretty quickly. The grading is, I mean, some of the work has already been done. The site's been cleared and grubbed. The drainage structures have already been designed but not implemented. The final grade will be essentially what the grade is today. That was the agreement. So there'll be minor drainage structures.
The agreement with,
The planning board and the Conservation Commission when the stormwater management review took place.
okay, if the easement was not granted, is there any access to that other parcel other than going across where the red arrows are to get to the back?
Not real, well, everything with these green I mean, it goes sparse around the site, but this is all wetlands. Yeah, I mean, you could, if you cut across here, you're into another lot again. So the cleanest
I
access.
couldn't follow the boundary line going all the way back.
Which boundary line? This one?
No, the furthest one.
This one?
Yes, right there.
Yeah, you see, this is all wetlands. Now you're doing a brook crossing, and it just gets really messy. The deeper you get into the site,
Okay.
the bigger of a problem it is.
How did you access to do the work up there now? How did you get in there to do the grade?
There's a temporary bridge has been, placed here, and the access has been right through here. All the access for the site clearing, the engineering.
It's been right to where? Through the easement?
Right through here, yes.
Is that an existing road right now?
Yeah, it's not wooded. This has all been disturbed for many years. Yes, there's a dirt road there. Not paved.
This is a dirt road?
Yes, that's a dirt road.
Has it just been graded or has it been there for years?
It's been there informally for years, but, it's been heavily driven over, for the past 6 to 9 months. So it needs to be graded. I mean, we've got ponding problems. There's issues with this site stagnating because the final grade hasn't been established, and with some of these rainstorms we've had over the past 6 months, we've been inundated with puddling, as the abutters, I'm sure, will tell you. So we're anxious to get this settled so we can do the final grading and eliminate those
Zoning
problems.
bylaw book. Where was it?
I think you'll have to see a line for it. I don't have it here.
If I can say something?
Hold on.
It is up there on the spiral canvas in the back.
So what do you have under agreement with that property?
Well, I don't think it's still legally under agreement. I think it lapsed because of all this controversy, but those people were upset that this shared access issue didn't come up previously. And so there's still...
The owner of that 3-acre parcel?
The owner of this parcel still owns it. They had it under agreement with a third party.
Oh, I see. To
And
sell
he
it
wanted
as
to
a
put a
single
single-family
family.
home there with a driveway access, and they were fully aware of what was going on out back. And then when this issue arose, because there was a question of this being a common ownership at one point, and there was some confusion, but in fact, when this was permitted through the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, it was in fact two different legal owners for these parcels. But nevertheless, the important thing is that the development, the permitting, the hearings, the awareness of what this project is well known and well established. All the abutters, everyone is aware of this plan. Nobody has reviewed or commented on this other than wetland scientists and hydrologists telling us.
Conservation has and the
Yeah,
planning board has.
everybody's commented on this being a disaster to implement from a conservation standpoint or from a hydrology or stormwater management because of, if you look at the topo, the difference between this upland and this large flat expanse area is about 5 feet over a very large portion. You'd have to bring a significant amount of imported fill, which nobody wants to do, build drainage structures, and just, how is this drainage going to go? You've got a couple of abutters here, how are they going to be impacted? They've really haven't seen this project because it really didn't impact them here.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it up to the public. How this works is all your questions are directed towards the chair, and then it's asked of the applicant. There's no connection between the two. I'll start with Mr. Gordon. You had your hand up first. Gordon
Mr.
Andrews.
Chairman, under 167-16, which is the estate lots section of the town bylaws, it says no more than one lot shall be no more than one lot shall be served by the access way. So you're gonna need,
So you need a
you're gonna have to do something for that lot. Because it says that you can't access more than one lot through that access way.
but this variance would be for that lot anyways.
They're asking for a variance from the section of the bylaw that says that they can only access over their own frontage. That lot would need a different variance. Because if you give them this, then that lot's not buildable. It's -16.
How does the easement read? What does that read? That the
The legal description of the easement is right here. Might be bad. Do you want me to read it, or do you want me to use
Please.
this? Okay. Recorded legal description, the land with the buildings thereupon, now known as remaining land of Lot 1, map 82 of Halifax Assessors Map, 57.07 plus or minus acres, as shown on the plan entitled Plan of Land of Halifax, Mass, prepared by Springer Construction Company, scale 1 inch equals 100 feet, October 16, 2003, Webby Engineering Associates Incorporated, engineers, land surveyors, 180. I think it's just, there's really no real description there. The surveyor's legal description is just meets and bounds and bearings and distances.
I mean, does it say the type of easement that it is?
It's an access and utility easement. The utilities and the physical access to the site is memorialized in an easement that has been recorded in favor of this property. This is the dominant, this is the servient property here, so this,
What was approved and reviewed from the planning board then?
just the plan coming through this site, this stormwater management, abutter impacts, those were all looked at by the planning board. The actual grading plan, the stormwater management plan was reviewed
And approved?
and approved in this exact configuration.
So if they have an easement, then if they have an easement, they have the legal right
I'm sorry,
to travel on that road, right? If they have an
What, say,
easement,
who has the easement?
that road the yellow,
The easement, yeah.
the easement is to go to that back lot. Yes?
Yes. That's correct.
When was that easement given?
I want to say...
Can you just read 2003 or 2000? I thought you said 2003.
No, it was after that. It wasn't 2003. I want to say it's only been about a year or so.
For what
The
purpose?
date's
For
down at the
this?
bottom of the paragraph.
For this purpose.
For this purpose.
For this purpose. For this site to have legal access over this parcel in order to get into the site.
And it was approved by the planning board and the conservation?
In this exact config, Mike, I know you... Okay, I'm anxious to hear, may I...
So, Michael Maloney.
Yes, sir.
229 Franklin Street. So we've been through this many times with planning and you guys and conservation. This was
Not with us guys, because we haven't seen this
Well, not in this
before.
configuration.
Oh.
It was always going to be one contiguous lot. The understanding of everyone was the front parcel was going to be used for access, the rear parcel would have the solar. We were under the impression that we were going to use that as access to the rear lot. There was even a water basin in that front lot that was on one of the plans originally. So I don't know how it was going to be a buildable house lot, if there was going to be a catch basin, water, an acre of.
But those plans evolved, Mike. I mean,
I know.
this whole drainage structure was re-engineered because that basin there was 12 inches. It wasn't, it was a very, very
But it would have to
shallow.
have been one contiguous lot. That's what we were told.
That's how it was approved, as one contiguous lot. That front lot being used for access, no single-family home. That was not part of what the planning board approved. And the building inspector, when they went for a permit to build a single family there, when they had it under agreement or to sell, he told them there's one lot, one access. End of story. And then they came to you guys to try and
I
get
disagree, I
variance on
disagree with that, but
My other question is, we also have 36 acres. This was all.
Where were you, Mike? Where were you?
We're to the south of this. We're basically.
Oh, down that way,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't
So-
know if you were partial.
And we're on board with this project. We've been with Mike and Conoco. I mean, we've gone along many years with this. We're all for the solar project. We want to just get this done at this point. So our issue is this access. It was told that it wasn't going to be like this. And again, like I said, we have a lot of acreage here. If I can create my own hardship, which I believe is what it looks like they're doing here, and get a piece of property that can only be accessed through wetlands, and then say, I want to use my common driveway to get out back, you guys should really give it to me, otherwise I have all this wetland impact. That to me is not right. That's not the intent of this bylaw.
In other words, they have legal access through that lot. That's not good enough. They want legal access and they want to build a single-family home. That's what this is all about. It was never approved. Matter of fact, I think if you do that, you're going to have to go back to planning board and get this project reapproved because that is a drastic change from what was approved by planning. There was never a single-family home involved.
Excuse me, now, the planning board, did they approve the access with the intent to use that lot for a house?
yes. Oh, for
No.
a house?
Yes.
There was never a house.
Mr. DeBon.
No,
There was never a house
to
discussed.
build a single-family home.
That wasn't the
That
project.
access-
That was not the project. The project wasn't to build a single-family home here. These legal parcels have been in existence for many years.
Okay, but you have an easement right now.
But we have an easement running through this parcel.
Okay, then why do you need us? Why do we have to come in here, why do you have to come in here and give you a variance?
Because the owner of this parcel granted the easement with the understanding that this could be used as a buildable
But
lot.
under our bylaws, you can't do that.
That's why I'm here.
They're creating their own hardship here. They already have access.
Mr. DeBon.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
are there any telephone poles on that, or is all
Yes.
So that's also another thing. It says that each driveway shall service each individual lot with underground utilities within the proposed access way. So you can't have telephone poles there either.
They already exist. They're already there.
But not for a single-family home is what I'm saying. If you put a single-family home, you've got to put the service underground.
That it could be underground. National Grid has already said that they could do it. And they would access it, they could access it underground this way from these utility.
No, 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 it's gotta be underground from the street to
Okay,
that.
well then they would have to do that. If that's the requirement, then they would have to do it.
And it says no more than one lot shall be served by the access way. So I think if you're gonna ask for this, you need to be asking for both permits at the same time if you're gonna try to turn that into.
Yeah, but they don't own that property.
But I'm just saying, if you're gonna give them this with the intent that they're gonna turn that into a single-family house lot, they should be asking.
What is the problem with the, I don't understand what the issue is with the single-family lot? Which is
Because you can only access your lot over your frontage.
No, I understand that. I mean, that's why we're here,
So
in
for
order
the
to
state-
share the access for this site and this site to be this frontage.
It says that you can't, no more than one lot shall be served by the access way. So you can either serve the single family, or you can serve you guys.
But they're asking for the variance to access
We're asking
both
for the variance,
lots.
that's-
No,
what we're here.
not under this section, they're not.
Well-
And that's what I'm saying, they're asking for a section, they're asking for a variance under a different section of the bylaw with the intent to come back and tell you that, well, you already gave that variance, so now we need another variance for the single-family lot.
Mr. Chairman, 16716 is talking specifically about estate lots and accessing estate lots. I don't know if that project is considered an estate lot.
That front lot would be an estate lot though, if they were to build a
Right,
house.
but is that easement accessing more than one estate lot?
An estate lot's a house, residential house.
The 16716, whenever you see lot here or estate lot, is specifically talking about estate lots in 160. I think really what we're talking about is 16710L. I don't think the estate law really comes into play here. Because we're not talking about building a dwelling on that lot back there.
That was the conclusion that was...
So I think we should limit our focus to 16710L.
Just to give them the easement to go to the back lot.
Well, whether we should or not, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I think that's,
That's what they're asking for. They're
yeah,
asking for the
yeah,
easement to
yeah,
go
I don't think
past.
16716 is
And
an issue here.
16710L specifically,
It says, access to all lots shall only be through or across its legal frontage. No common driveways are allowed unless otherwise provided for within this chapter.
They want to put a,
And that's under, so you gotta remember what it's under, and this is a general density regulation, so I would say that's where we're hanging our hat on that, whether we can or cannot. I don't think 16 is an issue here. I think we're adding more into it than, I think we should focus on 16710L, it's my opinion. Now, whether that we can or we can't. My first question is, what's the problem with, I mean, can you come through your legal frontage? Did they deny you coming through the legal frontage? Were you denied coming through the legal frontage? Regardless of what you have to do, were you denied that?
We were not in writing denied it. During the conservation hearings, this was discussed along with the other impacts. When we discussed these, they asked for alternatives to minimize the impacts associated with that, because we have a stream crossing and we have other buffer issues, we have a pinch down area. There were a number of issues that needed to be overcome. That was very early on in the process, and that was a no-go, basically, to dredge out, rebuild, compact a road
No goal, why?
because of impacts, wetlands impacts.
But you just said you weren't told no.
We weren't told no because we're not actually into the wet, this is actually in the wetlands. We're not crossing over into the wetlands with this plan. This would dive right into it and completely disturb it. I mean, there's a 50-foot no touch, but going into the wetlands is an entirely different undertaking. Mass DEP gets involved and...
Okay,
yeah.
but can it be done?
Oh, physically, sure, it can be done. We could build a road through there. It's no problem to engineer it and make it happen. Whether there's stormwater management issues, disruption of wildlife and habitat, and mostly things to do with wetlands resources.
In other
Could we
words,
physically do it? Sure.
is the only reason you're not doing that because of cost? You're not,
No,
you're
it's
not
not.
looking at that
No.
because of cost?
No, because coming in through here and coming in through here, I mean, it's basically the distance, the same distance. Well,
I
there
mean,
would be,
you
there
can-
would actually be,
you
there
can-
would
you
there would
can
be some
trade
costs.
off, you can do a wetland swap with some area up here.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of wetlands up through here, but yeah, I mean, it's not driven by cost. Whether that, to do this would cost more than to develop this, yeah, maybe it would be, but I'm not sure how much. We didn't take it to the point. The feedback we were getting was this is such a deep encroachment into the wetlands, and there's this, from the flat level out there to the uplands, the amount of disturbance, the wildlife, that was the issue. And once we explored a different alternative access, that frankly wasn't discussed further with us.
So, Mr. Chairman, specifically what's going through my mind is we're gonna have this issue again tonight with how can you create a variance and what are the meeting all
How can you
those
create a hardship,
criteria?
you mean?
Right, all the criteria. So if they're able to do it with a legal frontage, they should do it with a legal frontage. Unless they can meet the 3 criteria we're gonna be looking at again tonight. That's what's going through my head right now.
Yes, Bob?
Let's not lose sight of why we're here. They already have access to the property out back through that lot,
Through what lot?
through the lot out front, which is, but they're both owned by Boker and Abbott. I can't get all the LLCs correct. That lot was bought exclusively to provide access to the back uplands, and they've got all kinds of proposals back there from apartments to 40B and everything else. Now they're doing the solar. The reason we're even discussing this is because now they want their access and they want to build a single-family house in direct violation of the Halifax zoning bylaw that says one lot, one access. Simple as that.
So this is not owned by the same entities, these 2 lots?
It is not.
It is under
Yeah,
agreement,
Yeah.
purchase and sale.
No, not by the same entity. This is a third party. If the third party ends up buying that lot, then,
Then you created your own hardship.
no, I disagree with that, but
You've cut yourself off. Can you buy that lot out front and add it to the lot out back?
I suppose you throw enough, money at it,
This
you
is
could buy
what I
it,
was
but
going-
I mean, I don't
That's what I was
know.
gonna
Rick
go.
already owns it, you know that, your boss.
No, he owns it, but he's not the person buying it. It's a third party that this was under agreement with, Bob.
Why are we talking third parties? We're talking about access to the land out back.
The easement travels with the lot. If that lot
So
goes
if
to a
I-
third party, they have legal access to the back. to
If
the
I have
back lot.
12 acres out behind my house, and I've got all wetlands out front, which I do, I can just go to land court or wherever you go and make an easement and build houses out back?
Well, he's telling me the planning board approved and
They did
conservation
not
approved that
approve
easement.
any easement over that lot.
Did they approve the easement?
The easement did not exist, but the road existed there.
What does that mean? It was a simple question. Did the planning
The
board,
planning board approved the access to this road as it's shown here. This legal easement did not exist on the lot. That was created after the fact.
yikes.
But you're already traveling that road? Yes? And you want a third party to come in and buy that lot?
I don't, but I
I'm
mean,
just saying, your bosses or whoever.
There is a
Potential buyer that wants to buy that lot.
There are a lot of agreements that were made in order to create the easement, in order to purchase this parcel. This is a very fluid, developments can be very fluid and a lot of changes. I don't dispute what Bob and Mike are saying, that ownership changes back. I can tell you, when the planning board reviewed this, the legal ownership of these parcels was different, was not the same. I checked that and I checked it again, because that kept coming up and coming up. Did it at one point have the same common ownership? Yes. But it flipped ownership 3 or 4 times over a period of maybe 12 months. So the timing of things was a little confusing. But the point I'm trying to make is when this project was reviewed and approved by the planning board and the conservation commission, this access was as it's drawn right now. This particular lot did not have on record a legal easement, but there was always the intent to create the legal easement. We just hadn't got around to having the lawyers do the alter plan and draw it all up and come up with the meets and bounds and
So
to
bottom
actually
line,
make it
Dan,
happen.
as you look at that 16710, if we grant this easement, are we rendering that front lot useless? If in fact 16710 is enforceable and you can only have, or as Mr. Andrews stated, 16716, are we rendering that front lot useless? by granting-
I think
Hold
the-
on,
I don't
sir,
think so, but
please.
that's, that,
I
I'm
think
asking.
what this is saying is, talking about the back lot, all access to all that shall only be through or across its legal frontage. So,
That's the only legal frontage. They got two legal frontages right now.
no, they only
No,
have
legal
one.
frontage has to be 150 feet, so that wouldn't even be legal frontage for that property.
An easement is not legal frontage. I would like to see what the planning board says about that easement.
So for the 3-acre parcel also, there's not 150 feet of frontage, so
No,
there's no
but-
legal access there either.
Say that again?
For an estate lot, but
A retreat lot. It would become a retreat lot. Right?
In which you need what?
50
Well,
foot.
it's not a dwelling.
It's what?
It's not a dwelling.
No, if you want to put a retreat lot.
Oh, you're talking about this one here?
Yes, the front
A retreat lot, you
Yeah.
need a 50-foot frontage.
Yeah, that's 7 feet, right?
right.
But you can't have the common driveway. Well, we don't know that. I would like to know what if in fact the planning board,
I don't know if
Did-
there's a distinction
did look
between a
at that.
common driveway and then having a common driveway with an easement.
easement.
Because there's plenty of them in town also.
There's
Out
Mr.
by the
Gordon
lake,
right now.
there's,
right.
it's an easement, utilities easement.
Want to ask Mr. Gordon? Gordon,
Is he here?
we'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, he's here. Oh.
Aren't you glad you came on? Surprise.
Was that easement granted when when they submitted that plan to you?
The easement on the front lot. Has that been approved by planning?
With the expectation of a house also on that lot. Is that what the planning board understood?
Yeah, that was the plan that was approved.
That plan was approved, the way it is.
I believe so.
You can't remember every single one?
Now, if they want, a third party's interested in that 3-acre parcel with the easement going through, how is that gonna work?
As an estate lot?
Or a retreat lot?
It was approved as an estate lot. I don't know, is the plan signed, showing the easement on there?
Gordon, what we're really talking about is...
Mr. DeBona, hold on.
Hold on, hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You're gonna talk through the chairman.
The plan was approved with this access as drawn. The legal easement as it's drawn up and recorded had not been recorded at the registry of deeds, but this was approved as it's drawn.
Was approved by
Planning board.
planning board. So like you said, as far as you can recall, the easement was there when the retreat lot.
I don't recall when the retreat lot was. I don't recall the dates.
It'd be hard to remember.
So,
Mr. DeBona, Michael,
yes,
yes.
so, no, when, like, the board, we're not arguing that this was the entry, everyone, we understand that that was gonna be the access to the parcel back. The issue is it was all gonna be one lot, there was gonna be no secondary house, no break off of the front parcel, that was gonna be one contiguous lot. So yes, the road was gonna go there, they did their improvements, so the access way was through that frontage, absolutely. But it was under one contiguous lot.
So since then, that
This-
retreat lot has
Correct.
been added on to at one point become a single-family
Correct, now all of
dwelling.
a sudden it's a single family house lot again, right.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Dan?
Were these two lots one parcel at one point?
No,
They never were.
never worked.
Okay.
So by doing that, we're rendering that 3 acres useless.
By granting a big...
By granting you that plan right there, we're rendering those 3 acres useless.
By granting a variance to share the frontage?
Yes. How's the other person gonna get through there?
Well, the intent was to have this shared by this parcel and the easement allowed to access the
That's why
back.
we'd have a variance, so they can pull
That's why
access
they
the rear on the
That
front.
was the reason
Share
for
it.
the variance, to share it.
Can we do that?
I think the bylaw says you can't have shared driveways.
That's why they're seeking a variance though.
But in the bylaws, can you have access to a retreat lot and an easement? Are they two separate things? An easement is just that, an easement to another piece of property. It's not ownership of the lot.
There's an easement going through my farm for 3 people.
Right.
Morse.
Which mean, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, just means you cannot deny access through the
No.
easement to the property,
No.
to the property out back.
No.
They, meaning the people out back, not specifically this case, but the people do not own, you know, that easement.
No easement here.
All they have is access to,
The right.
Fish and Wildlife.
The right to cross.
which is the same thing, isn't it, down on Elm Street? Didn't we do that with Elm Street with the bog road that went out back?
That's Fish and Wildlife.
That's just
They
a,
have an easement through our property, so does Morse. But they can't, they only have the right of way they go through.
to go through, to
That's
use
it,
it.
yeah.
No ownership is
No
involved.
ownership in it, no, just to
But yet,
use it.
Mr. Andrews over here said 16716, that you can't have two access.
But only if
That
they're
refers
would
to
be
using,
estate lots.
if they're
That's
using,
talking about estate lots, shared for estate lots.
Well, that's what that is.
That's what exactly what it is. It's-
We're asking for the right to cross over that lot.
you're asking for the right to cross.
The one behind
Only,
it is an estate
Right,
lot.
only.
only. So an easement to cross over,
Yeah, they're not asking for
Sharing two
frontage.
estate lots.
They're not,
That's 16716, I think, is talking about multiple estate lots, sharing one driveway.
So
you're
the
gonna
variance
understand,
was,
they're asking for an easement to cross
if a
over,
variance was approved,
like the same as
the variance would be
going down,
registered on what deed,
my
it would be
place.
the front lot, correct?
Yes, because
So the
that
variance
lot,
would be attached to that estate lot. So I think that would, Gordon's issue would not come into play, because the variance is on that estate lot.
right, and the shared access to estate lots is the only frontage to access both estate lots. They're not looking for frontage. but-
Who's the owner of the easement?
it'll run in favor
No,
of
there
this
should
front.
be the owner. We own the easement, we own the right, we own the land.
You own the
They-
land.
We own the land, they have the right to cross over that piece of land.
Right.
But who owns that easement?
It's a legal restriction. This
Right,
becomes
it's
a
not, ownership
subservient
isn't involved with the
lot.
easement.
This is the dominant lot because they have the legal right to cross over this with no ownership interest.
Right,
But-
there's no ownership to the easement.
There has to be an
There has to
ownership to it.
Well, the ownership
person
is
owns
that
the
front
deed.
lot.
It's on the
The one that has
It's on
3
the
acres
deed. It's on
owns
the
the
deed.
easement.
The one that has the
It's in
3
the
acres
common
owns
land.
owns the land.
Right,
They own the land,
But-
and they have the negative of an easement attached to
It's
it.
like an encumbrance on the.
Right.
But they're
exactly.
gonna,
And this is the dominant lot, this is the servient lot, and they have to let whoever wants to
Right.
access this
You
cross
can't
over.
deny
they're giving you the easement.
The owner of this lot
Yes.
is granting the
Right,
easement
that's right.
to this
But without no ownership.
with no ownership
With
rights
no
whatsoever.
ownership to the
No
second
ownership.
part.
Just, it's an
Just
easement on the
granting the
deed.
right
Then
to
then
cross over it.
that could be done.
and leave.
So why do we have to vote?
You still have variance for accessing the rear property through that front property.
Yeah, but that's allowed.
I mean, same thing with
It's an-
our
it's an
Morse
easement,
brothers
that's allowed.
accessing my land.
right.
But you're accessing that rear lot, not across its legal frontage.
Same with Morse. They have no frontage.
They are not using the easement, quote, slash driveway to the retreat lot as frontage. They have frontage.
The legal frontage
Up there,
still
the reason
The
exists.
frontage
bylaw
is
also
up
states
there.
to access a lot, you need to cross your own legal frontage.
That's right.
That's why they're asking a variance.
That's the variance for 16710L.
You need to cross your own legal frontage,
Right.
not somebody else's land to get to your own.
Well,
Most crosses my land, he has no frontage.
He has no frontage, right?
Right.
Most has no frontage.
They have frontage.
Landlocked.
Landlocked.
They have frontage.
He has,
He has an easement.
United Fish and Wildlife has no frontage.
Has an
They
easement.
access my easement. They have the right of way to cross our land.
And we're
probably
not
half the
talking about,
easements are for utilities
we're not
access.
talking about accessing a dwelling, which I think is a big
No, no, they're
point.
accessing that piece of
He's
land.
accessing that piece of
Yeah, it's
land.
not a dwelling, no commercial site, establishment.
How does putting utilities from the solar farm out to the main street, now you're actually taking, I know it's an easement, but are you allowed to put utilities on that easement for your property?
It's called an access and utility easement, which allows for it. It allows you to traverse the property and to actually bring a utility in. It's a very common easement.
Okay.
And that only has to be underground if it's a residential? In other words, they can have telephone poles as a utility easement? I'm asking, I don't, yeah. I've never done.
That would depend on their easement, but, I mean, I think the intent of the bylaw is to access your own property through your frontage. I mean, you're talking about other places that have happened, but those were happening before the bylaw.
I mean, that's
We
a,
have the bylaw now.
Trying to think of different other ones. The one on Elm Street, the bogs back there. Yeah, that was prior to 76 also.
From the original plan, don't they have the...
this has been there since the 1800s.
Has it
It's
really?
a right of way. It's a right of way. It was called a driftway going from Halifax to
What do
Hansford.
they call it? A driftway?
Driftway.
You just made that up, didn't you?
And Morse and United Cape Cod Cranberry had the right to go through there. But they had no legal ownership of the property. We own the property. They had the right.
Kesmerick, that's who I was thinking of. That's where that access road off at Elm Street
Yeah, they
is.
put that in.
They actually, Kesmerick own the property, and they have an access road that, to the bogs and, wasn't like Fish and Wildlife or something,
Yeah,
whatever.
they made an access road through there, Fish and Wildlife. And their right of way was through our property.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I came into the meeting, I wasn't really prepared for it.
No, oh no, I understand, we were just picking your brain.
My suggestion would be to reference back to the planning board and find out.
I'd like to see is
Time
what
to get the-
they,
The information.
And I also think it would be a good idea if we had land council, town council also give us an answer to their interpretation of the legal creation of the easement through the property. I think that only makes sense. And I specifically would like to know if in fact the granting of this would render that estate lot useless. If in fact 16716, as Mr. Andrews said, would render the estate lot useless by us granting the,
Oh, we'll get town council's opinion.
But isn't why we're here for the ZBA to assess the situation and
Yes.
grant the variance?
that's what we want
I'm
to do.
trying to understand what the negative impacts of allowing this are, based on what we've seen and heard and reviewed over the past year. I don't see the
Well,
negative
the
impact.
negative impact is, I don't have the decisions and the rendering and what was submitted to the planning board, and like Mr. Andrews just got through suggesting, that would be prime. The first thing we should do is do just that. Find out exactly what the issues and what the, how they drew the plan out and what they approved. And then, like you said, I mean, you're coming before us saying, oh yeah, planning board and conservation came.
That's fair.
I just like to see it, you know.
checklist too.
You know, if,
But I can tell you, that historically, it was never discussed about a single-family home here. It just wasn't part of the project.
The easement was just brought up recently. That's a new easement to put on that piece of
It's a
property.
new legal easement, but in order to make
Yes,
this project
but
happen,
It's not, it hasn't been recorded yet.
oh, it's been recorded.
It's recorded?
Oh, yeah, it's recorded, it's there.
Then We like to see what transpired so we can make a good, sound decision on it.
Right.
Other than that, we're not.
Do you have a
The
copy?
sale of what? The easement?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. That's it. Oh, I don't have it with me, I'm sorry. I can get it down to the office tomorrow. But the agreement to develop and this project ultimately being purchased by the new developer was subject to an easement through the property. That would have never happened. It just, the lawyers hadn't got around to, and the land surveyors working out all the details of how the easement had to look and the size of it, the shape of the road that goes in, and what you can touch and what you can't touch. By the time that got around to being done, prior to the closing of the project, it was a year ago. So I think Mr. DeBono is correct when he said that easement wasn't on there legally, but the easement was always part of the project because
Which
it
is
would
how
have
the
never
land got
happened.
cleared, you said.
Pardon me?
Which you told us how that land back there got cleared and...
It's all cleared,
Yeah.
it's completely cleared now. It's moving forward.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I think we should see town council.
I would recommend that we get an interpretation of 167.16 as well as 167.10 to in fact determine, Alana, you getting all this? I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh,
Typing.
type quickly. No.
Okay.
If in fact it's the opinion of town council that we would be rendering the property useless, meaning the estate lot out front, the 3-acre parcel.
Okay.
Number two, I'd also like to let a request to the planning board to forward the approved plans and of both the estate lot and the large parcel that's currently being proposed to the zoning board, indicating the existence of the access road / easement, not access, easement.
Okay.
Specific, anything else? Guys, jump in here, help me out here.
That's fine.
And we'll take it from there. In the meantime, if you can find out or add anything that would help us out, I'd greatly appreciate it. When the letter comes or whatever. Oh, that'd be great. We can arrange that. Yeah, Alana, if you could put that in there also in the letter to the planning board, if perhaps a joint meeting between the planning board and the zoning board would be helpful in determining the properties, then please let us know at your earliest convenience.
Okay.
Okay? We good?
Did we have a motion? Kasaya, was that a motion?
I didn't think we needed a motion, to send a letter.
Yeah, motion
You
to
need to
send a letter
continue
to
with that.
All
town
right, do
council.
we have a second?
Second.
If there's a motion,
continue it.
in a second, and we'll continue the petition number, what is it, 900, until the August meeting. Do you have a date and anything?
August 12th?
August 12th is our next meeting? All right, if you could put them on the agenda, that'd be great.
500 feet of what?
Oh, all those in favor?
Say aye.
Aye, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5 to 0 to 0. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so one. And that's,
So after all that, we have to determine whether that meets the 3 criteria for variance on top of it.
Correct. Well, I think that should be included in the letter to the town council.
Okay.
Meeting the requirements. We'll tweak that as, what is it? 8/18, 8/12, 8/8? When is the next meeting? 8 what?
8/12.
12?
And you give it a month to go by, Einstein comes up with Joe. Yeah, so good.
What are you doing?
we got the big guns.
Oh my God, is it always happening here or is it me? Is it-
You're drinking coffee too.
Huh?
And you're drinking coffee, don't open the window. It's hotter than hell outside.
Not. It's nice out today.
He's hitting hot flashes. This has been a
What would you like to have us
Menopause.
Last petition was right there, I think, worked out well with the camera in it.
Could be any water in here?
We were just saying that outside.
I don't need folks, so that's me.
Larry, do you actually want to go on? Yeah, she searched maybe in the minutes.
Oh, come on, that's so much nicer. You
Oh,
can't
yeah.
feel that.
You sorry. Yeah.
I'm driving. All right, let's,
Only 5 this time?
You want more?
No.
this is, oh, here we go. I get the right one. Yes. Okay, this is, we'll open the meeting to discuss petition number 894, which was continued to tonight's meeting. Why don't I just read this for the record? The Halifax Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public meeting with number 1 of the Town Hall, 499 Plymouth Street, Halifax, on the application by Campbell Lewis for variances for off-street parking and minimum loading area at 330 Plymouth Street, Halifax, Mass. Said property is owned by Hutton Team LLC of 736 Cherry Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, as shown on Assessors Map 63, Lot 30. Title reference book 42758, page 1. The applicant seeks variances permitting to the off-street parking requirements according with the Halifax zoning bylaws, section 167.14, and minimum loading area, section 167-3. First, the variance is requested for 34 parking spaces, down from the required 73 parking spaces. Section 167-14F for the 7,225 square foot retail facility. Second, a variance is requested for 17 parking spaces with a paved area of 180 square feet, down from the required 200 square feet, section 167-14. Third, a variance is requested for the proposed loading area with dimensions of 20.5 feet wide and 35 feet long, as opposed to the required minimum lot area dimension of 14 feet wide and 45 feet, section 167-3. Area is zoned commercial business, petition 894. Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
Very well.
For the record,
Your name, sir?
Yep. My name is Casey Birch. I'm a civil engineer for Solely Engineering.
Okay.
We offices out of Monroe in Boston, Massachusetts. Monroe, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts.
My name is Larry Repair. I'm also an engineer, licensed engineer, and I work with Solely Engineering as well, mostly in Connecticut.
And I brought Larry today because I know there were some questions regarding national realty, the national side of O'Reilly's, and how our prototype is our prototype, and in building size was a big concern with you guys, asking him, could you make it smaller? Larry has a lot of experience with National Realtor, pretty big one, and he can.
Yeah, but from our last meeting, it was specifically requested from the board that, in fact, if you could show us
Right.
that, in fact, the 73 parking spaces could, in fact, fit
Correct.
on a lot this size.
Oh yeah, I'm getting
to establish
that.
the
I'm sorry.
hardship.
Yeah, I'm getting
Well,
that.
that's
Just,
where we are.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell him I was bringing.
Could you show us specifically how even both I think 4 out of the 5 members requested it?
Yeah, sure. So in front of you and in your packets,
Right.
the letter that you have received, I designed a code compliant plan. This plan here has 76 parking spaces. I know you only require 73. All the parking spaces are 10 by 20 per your 200 square foot minimum regulation, and the loading area is 45 by, actually it's by 22, which is more than.
And that's the 7225 square foot building?
Correct.
As a
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So the hardship that we have with this plan, I'm going to start with the soil conditions because they're the biggest, and they would make the plan not work at all.
So not to interrupt you or anything,
Sure.
excuse me, but bottom line, Dan, I mean, reading through the minutes, that was the specific question that we had, that if in fact they could meet the requirements and ask for a variance for those requirements, as opposed to proposing a 7,225 square foot building and creating their own hardship. I think that was the crux of the whole thing, if in fact they were creating their own hardship. And you asked specifically then, without reference to wetlands and drainage and soil conditions and whatnot, if in fact the building itself on that lot could fit on that lot.
Based on how I read the opinion of a town council,
Right, exactly.
what was said was,
Right,
shape and topography is not to be confused with size.
Right.
So the lot has to be able, square footage of the lot has to be able to contain.
do you feel that the drawing that answers
Yes,
that
I
very
do.
question?
Yes, I do.
All right, cool.
And then now we can get into the soil condition
Right, and
and
then,
topography.
so, I, truthfully feel, my own opinion, that your original proposal, you did create your own hardship with the size of the building. But now we're showing that it can actually fit,
Right.
and for it not to derogate from the intent of the bylaw, not to be detrimental to the established character of the commercial area, and of course the hardship. It seems to me that at least it's able to fit on the lot. And then we can determine if in fact, at the pleasure of the board, if in fact those criteria are met in order to grant the hardship.
And I would just like to know, as a talk moving forward, the attorney did say hardship can be financial or otherwise. Doesn't just have to be a financial hardship. So if there's, which I said at the last meeting, if their smallest business model is that size, and I understand, I had my own business years ago, that they're gonna need X amount of square footage for stock, to be able to stock the shelf, to be able to supply the customers. I mean, I kind of feel they need that size building,
Right,
understanding,
right. And it was my understanding also that a major proportion of the 7225 is just that, for storage and inventory.
Right, inventory, that's
And
what it is.
it was originally proposed that the number of parking spaces, the hardship could be required because of the reduced size of the actual sales floor as opposed to inventory storage. So why don't we get into the hardship? Why don't we go right there?
Sure. I have a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry, Robert.
So the way that's drawn on that lot without any soil conditions or anything like that, you would not need any variances, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And can I just ask you a question? So that, in your mind, establishes, I guess, a legal right to then ask for the variances?
No, not a legal right to, well, yes, to ask for the variances,
You've
to see
got a
if in
starting
fact you
point.
meet that criteria.
Okay. Without that, you don't really have a starting point because...
It was pretty cut and dry from the last
Asking
time.
for too much.
Don't you
I
think?
just want to be clear about that.
That's why the
Thank you.
board thought it would be beneficial to, grant the extra time to give you an opportunity to do just that.
Understand. Okay, so yeah, let me talk about the soil conditions portion first. In specific, the septic leaching field. So our leaching field is currently up in the west corner of the building, of the property right here. It needs, for Title V, a separation from groundwater about 4 to 5 feet.
This was determined by the Board of Health, right?
Correct.
You had met with them previous.
Yes.
I'm sorry to keep
Oh,
interrupting.
no, that's okay, that's okay. Filling in the
Questions
gaps
just
is
pop
great.
into my head.
Filling in the gaps is great. So to make that work, we determined groundwater out here at about an elevation of 67.9. 4 feet above that is 71.9. So our bottom of our system is at 71.5. The system is 12 inches high because it's a stone trench system. So now we're at 72.9. And now we need at least a foot of cover above that because it's in the paved area. So that brings us up to 73.9 in this area right here. Our code compliant plan, we at 73.5 for the finished floor elevation. We could squeak up to 73, that's going up at 3% from here to here, because once you get into the parking area, you can't really go, and O'Reilly's and doesn't really like to have any steeper than 3%, and it's not really, a good design anyway. So going up to the 3%, we had a finished floor elevation of 73. That brings this area around 72. We're cutting into our area about 1.9 feet. So we couldn't put a septic system on this property if we would go code compliant with this plan.
So
Also-
the hardship there would be the topography of the property itself.
In the soil
In order to
conditions of
meet-
the groundwater.
I just wanted to
layer.
get that clear in my head, thank you.
Yep, and also we'll be filling in about, let me see, I think it was like 300 square feet of wetlands, which is not ideal either. In addition, topography, to make this work, we had to kind of almost go so close to the property line and then put a retaining wall around the southern, eastern, and northern side of the property. This retaining wall ranges from 1 to 2 feet down to 5 to 6 feet, and it's roughly about 2,300 square feet, about an $80,000 retaining wall around the property. And because we're going so close to the property line here, we're removing our surface detention, and we'd have to put underground detention in the form of concrete galleys or plastic piping, which we calculated to satisfy 4,000 cubic feet of storage, which is what we need. That's about another 80 to almost $100,000 right there in underground detention. And in the pavement alone, we're doubling the pavement size. This plan was about 16,000 square feet of pavement, and we're going to 32,000 square feet of pavement. Almost, it's doubling the size. So that's an additional 50,000 alone right there. So total financially, this is without earthwork, because this is obviously more fill as well. You're looking around 210 to 220 in addition with this code compliant plan. So financial hardship?
Go ahead and say yes.
Yes. But the biggest thing is the soils condition. If we had to do this, there would be no project because of the underlying groundwater table.
Now, what changes would they have to be in the drainage and whatnot affecting the abutters if you went with the second drawing as opposed to your original proposal?
So the second drawing, I mean, this right here is 4,000 cubic feet. Essentially, the second drawing is increasing the peak runoff discharge. So you probably have to increase it a lot more. And then you'd have to find an outlet bottoming out of the retaining wall, but it would just all be underground.
Would that affect the abutters, the bank and Mrs. Alge's property back there? Specifically? You'd have to make it a lot. It would have to be really large to reduce the size. And the problem is the groundwater here as well, because of the wetlands, you're going to have to be above that. So it'd be a really shallow system. So the whole thing would be probably an L shape around the entire building. But you could probably make it work. It would still be pitching. We would still have the outlet, out to the eastern corner of the property. So it would still be going through that ditch area. So that probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. Other than you're increasing the amount of water and runoff by the increased amount of pavement?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
And you got the heat island indexed as well. A lot of people don't care about that, but in our field, we like to take that into consideration as well.
So larger paved area, you're increasing the runoff, which could potentially impact, I'm sorry, your name, I forgot.
Alger.
It would increase her problem. It could potentially increase it.
It could potentially, yes.
Any questions from members of the board?
I drove all the way here.
He's gonna get okay, that's enough.
Good evening.
Your name, sir?
Larry LePere. As I said, I'm a licensed engineer. I work with soil engineering. I've been an engineer for 40 years, but not always practicing engineering. For 11 years, I was a site development manager for Lowe's. working in New England and building those stores around here and there. And I really wanted to speak about the way national retailers go about preparing their prototypes. Because Lowe's did a very similar thing. And O'Reilly's has several different prototypes for several different markets and different conditions and things like that. But pretty much once you get inside the store, everything in there is sacrosanct. They spend a lot of time and money figuring out what the right amount of floor space is for the right amount of storage area. As you know from having gone through this whole process, they're a little bit different than a retail store of that size. They generate a lot fewer trips in the parking area. That's why they can live with less parking. Most other people with that much floor space would need extra parking. They don't because a goodly portion of their interior area is in fact storage or warehousing, and so it's a little bit of a different animal in terms of retailing. But the real key is they go through all of their machinations of what works and what doesn't work, and they have a series of prototypes that span from this one, which is their smallest, to other ones that are larger for different markets and different pieces of property. And the key is, and I think we touched on it already, but it's not viable to have a smaller store. This is the smallest store that they have that they know works. Anything else would be kind of off the rails. They don't know it works. It's hard to make a commitment on a corporate level to a store that doesn't function the way you think it does.
But there are O'Reilly stores that are less than 7225 square feet.
Excuse me?
There are other O'Reilly auto
But they're
parts
not
stores that
building
are
them now.
less than
I believe there are,
7225.
but they're not building them now. And an analogy to that would be, when I was with Lowe's, there were stores that were 85,000, 95,000, 100,000, but when I was looking for them, they were all 126,000 because they had changed the way they market their product. They don't build those stores because they don't work as well as these do. Anyway, currently, this is their smallest prototype. I don't want to speak for what they would do internally, but I suspect if this didn't work and somebody said, you can have the store, but it's going to be smaller, they'd probably say, thanks, but no thanks.
Okay. Any questions from member of the boards? I mean, from what we read off from our last meeting, in regards to feedback from our town council, Dan, do you feel, that the questions were addressed?
Yeah, I'm reading it just to make sure. I mean, we do three things. We give out special permits, we hear appeals, and we give out variances. A variance is something that goes against the written bylaw.
Right.
So we have to be able to justify that. And, have they met the three criteria that I could comfortably say, yes, we can handle a variance because they've met that. Soil conditions, yes. Topography, yes. Hardship, financial or otherwise. This is the model of their store. They need the space for inventory. I mean, their peak was what, 14? 14 customers. So, I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd even have less parking and more drainage, I think they've met that. And then the last one is the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. Well, it's commercial business zone.
Right.
So I think it more than meets all three checkboxes.
I think also too, if I'm going to add to that, Kasari, I think at the last meeting, brought up a good point too, that basically this building's no different than, what was it, Tedeschi's or Dunkin' Donuts, right? It's basically on the same size lot with the same.
For Dunkin' Donuts, they had to do a lot of,
they have commercial space there too. So in that reference, I'm specifically referenced being detrimental to the established character of the neighborhood. In that commercial zone, I think that is our business zone in town, and I don't feel it would be detrimental to that or the intent of the bylaw for that matter.
I agree.
Bob, what do you think?
I agree with Dan. Soil conditions, topography,
They could do it.
yeah.
Kasari,
If the
anything to
conditions
add?
are right, they can do it, but
Well, tonight you'd be voting on this in So there'd be the 5 members here.
So
Any?
I
what's
missed
that?
last meeting, but I watched the video, so I can still vote, I believe.
Yes, if you're watching, good. Awesome, I remember you not saying it.
Sign that paper, sign.
Yeah, she provides you with,
Andrew read the,
look at Alana, it's already in the printer. Hot off the presses. Anything else you want to add? Think-
No, I like the vibe, somebody.
Yeah, probably the less said at this point, the better.
Gotta read the board sometimes.
But you drove here.
You get approved, it'll be easy drive back.
All right, I'll entertain a motion. Any other restrictions or anything like that that anybody would like to add? The only one, conditions or anything like that?
Yeah, they already had.
How about, the only other one that I have is regarding the residential area in the back. Is there lighting going out in the parking lot?
No, everything's maintained on.
Okay, so any spotlights or parking would be shielding from,
We have to actually shield, we typically, and I know we did it for this one, we shield actually from the wetlands too. So if there's like a wetlands on site, we have to be zero along that perimeter too.
all right, so as far as, no shining lights and whatnot,
Everything is sky compliant, dark sky compliant.
You don't want the deer to get blinded.
Or think it's daylight.
that would be my only request that
So I think
when
questions that have been asked and answered before, but no outside storage, correct?
Correct. Yes.
No outside repairs?
No,
all
that's
around,
not-
doesn't-
yeah, that's not-
And just the other thing, no parking on the street.
Right, and we're providing that parking.
Yeah,
What
I
about-
believe so.
What about hours of delivery? Do we have to go through that? What did you say? Typically, it's
It's either at the start of the day, which is I believe 8 o'clock, and then at night. We don't do it during. They don't do it during the peak hour, where the 14 cars.
106 is kind of crazy
Right.
during those peak hours.
Right. Yeah, I guess they don't do it during the peak hour for them.
What
Yeah, I
about,
think
are you
it's-
going to reduce the size of the loading dock? Are we still going with that as part of
We would like to, and we don't really. I mean, this is what they typically do, and we don't really feel it necessary to increase into where we have the surface detention, and then essentially increase the detention pond even more. This impervious pavement in this pervious area is suitably sized for what we have in the back, and we're able to attenuate the peak flows from existing conditions, and obviously that helps any flooding in the rear.
So you're going, as your application indicates, 20.5 feet wide by 35 feet long, as opposed to 45 feet long.
And it's the same area as what you guys require for 45 and 15, I believe?
45 and 14.
14, yeah. So we're the same general area. We're just asking for the length to be.
Board okay with that?
If you have less parking over there, would that help you out?
Yeah, we could essentially, if we were able to go 33 spaces, then yes, we could go up.
They can eliminate the parking, I don't think you have the limit.
Can't change it.
Yeah, I mean,
They got
we
that.
got planning approved for 34, so we'd like to maintain that.
Yep.
What are the hours of operation?
I believe it's 8 to. I always forget the. I think it's 8 to 8 or 9, 8 to 9. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've gone through this spiel like so many times, and I always have that question, and I think it's 8 to 9.
It's pretty typical of the hours of the area anyhow.
What's the one in Kingston?
this says.
What are the hours of operation there?
What does it say?
7:30 to 9.
Okay, 7:39.
Okay.
Sorry. I was around.
7:30 to 9, well.
Thank you.
We did have to write it down for planning. I'm sorry. I just came back from vacation. I'm like still a little exhausted.
You still got the margaritas.
No. Vacation with a toddler and a 4-year-old is not a vacation.
You need to come back to
Let's just
work.
say that.
All right, so other than anything else, we all good as applied, as submitted, with the loading dock size, the hours of, where did that come from, Alana, the hours of operation? Was that in the original?
I just Googled.
Oh, Oh, she just made it up.
Comments.
That's
The
the,
Brockton store, but, you want me to specify a store?
all right, I'll entertain him,
So we're at 34 parking spaces,
yep,
225 square foot building.
yep.
How many and the 20 and a half feet by 35 feet long
Loading dock,
loading dock, that's where we're at, correct?
yep,
Okay, so we're at the original
application.
application, okay.
And 17 parking spots, a little shorter, a little
Yeah.
smaller.
Right.
Half of the spaces is 17 in front, 70 on the side. We reduced the ones on the side.
What was it, from 18 to, from 20 to 18?
20 to 18, correct. We kept the same width,
Yeah.
10, but we just,
Operating hours to not exist beyond 7:30 AM to 9 PM, and then the shielded,
dark compliant.
yeah,
dark zone
compliance. All right, I'll entertain a motion
Motion to-
regarding petition 894.
Motion to accept 894 as presented,
With the conditions as stated,
with the conditions that stated on the application.
and the condition of hours of operation and the shielded lighting. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, you guys have to agree to that.
Yes.
And there's a second?
Second?
So there's a motion and a second to accept petition number 894 as presented with conditions. I'm gonna ask for a voice vote. Jerry?
Yes.
Kasia?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So it passes 5-0 to 0. Alana will explain to you, the process, from the clerk's office to the waiting period, the appeal period. There's a 20-day, and we'll do all that fun stuff. Thank you very much for your cooperation and your patience. It's well appreciated. Now you can drive back to Connecticut. Tell them New York, but tell them you cemented the whole thing. You lie, I'll swear to it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
When you open, come on.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Good night, all.
All right, where are we so we can get the hell out of here? O'Reilly's overpass, we don't need to do that one. Where am I with my agenda? What I do with it? Bob, stop taking my stuff. Here we go. Right here. Petition 900, legal from, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's get that out of the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did you get yours?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, that's green farm. What I do, bills, mail. Okay, we have some mail to go through quickly here. One from Mass Housing. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-page letter from Mass Housing regarding the Country Club's estate project eligibility site approval from Mass Housing dated June 10th. John Peck, R&J LLC, 100 Country Club Drive in Halifax, Mass. Basically, I mean, if anybody, did everybody get copies of this?
Yeah, right.
Did you? Good, because I don't want to read the whole thing. Basically, it's just announcing the application soon to be coming before the Zoning Board of Appeals for the comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B and its regulations. So we look forward to that. Second one from the Planning Board, Town Clerk, Conservation, Water Department, ZBA, Assessor's Office, Building Inspector, Highway, and Board of Health. Please find the attached copy of the Form A that was approved and endorsed by the Planning Board at their June 6th, 2019 meeting. Area is zoned residential. This is River Street, Pratt Street, and Thompson Street. Subdivide lots, creating 3 lots. All right? Oh, God, you want everything. Okay, to the Zoning Board of Appeals Secretary, Planning Board, June 20th, 2019, 395 Plymouth Street, site plan review. During the planning board meeting held on June 6th, it was discussed that the property at 395 Plymouth Street, which is the old farmhouse, would require site plan review under chapter 16728. There is no site plan review on file, and the board has not approved one. Chapter 203-4 was also discussed regarding dwelling intensity. The board motion and second to send a letter to the zoning board of appeals to bring this matter to your attention. So if I understand this correctly, after attending the selectmen's meeting, it was a vote to send a letter to the board on June 6th that never got made. So they revoted to send a letter on June 20th, which was after we voted for it. We voted on it. Okay, just making us aware. I think it was also just for the other members of the board, I had a discussion with Mr. Andrews regarding more communications between the planning board and the zoning board, and hopefully initiating down the road, which I'm sure we'll be doing with the letter that was just sent to us for the comprehensive site plan review for the 40B project, joint meetings to be arranged, period, to discuss exactly this, so this doesn't happen again, you know, which was brought to the attention of the selectmen, and I couldn't agree more. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I think it can only help us. Mr. Andrews.
I'd just like to bring up a point. I mean, I think during your meeting, you discussed that and asked of the applicant if the site plan has been approved. And I don't know if the communication from the applicant was confusing or through that whole process it was. But, you know, whether they didn't understand your question or they just said yes or whatever. But there was no site plan that was signed. There were Form As that were signed.
Okay, I think
And
specific,
I
yeah,
think that added
to the confusion.
the confusion, but I think you had confusion from the applicant as well.
Fair to say.
So, I mean, I think if we read through the bylaw, it says that the permit can't be issued unless there's a site plan. And that's been the practice that we've done before.
Not just a Form A from a site plan.
Not Form A,
Right.
but for the site plan, to get that approved first, and then they come to you for the special permit, and that becomes part of that special permit. When you sign off the special permit, now there's actually a plan that goes with it, versus giving a special permit, there's no plan, so what is the special permit?
Which Mr. Andrews and I, again, had discussed that there's no specific procedure from A, B, C, D that each application follows or should follow or has followed. You know, it's, we rely basically on the presentation of material to the board, and I think more cooperation on the back and forth between the two boards, and as well as we also talked about sitting down and doing just that. Okay, an applicant comes walking in the door, you go to the town clerk, you go to this one, you go to the building inspector, you need this and this from the building inspector, because specifically regarding the Plymouth Street application, I mean, how many of those meetings did we have the building inspector present here, you know, with us, and again, relying on him, and as well as the information given if in fact the whole process had gone through from A to Z without omissions or interruptions, so to speak.
And myself, I mean, I attended some of those meetings too, and that it was, you know, oh, we haven't done that Form A, we've got to go back to the planning board to get that Form A signed. You know, there was a change and change and change. And honestly, I didn't follow it all the way to the end because, you know.
Yeah. We did put on a series of conditions.
I maintained myself, and, you know.
We did put on a series of conditions that had to be met regarding the addition to be removed and the permits to be issued before, in fact, we were doing our due diligence, hopefully.
And I mean, one of the other items in there is under chapter 203,
there's a density of no more than 4 family on 1 acre lot that's not town sewered. So, I mean, they came back, they got a Form A, they got 40,000 square feet, but they wouldn't be able to have more than 4 families on that because it's less than 1 acre.
But the Board of Health should have caught that also.
But this is what I'm bringing up, is there's no process for that to go through. If the applicant sees it, they're not gonna bring it up. You know what I mean? And we rely on the applicant to come to the planning board, come to our meeting, and then come over here and tell you what we said, which could be,
Without errors or omissions.
you know, could be a different interpretation by the time they get here. And when they get to the conservation, they might even still have a third interpretation of what happened. And that's why I'm saying, I think, you know, as boards here, we just need to work better together. And, you know, if we set up a checklist or
Perfect.
some kind of a process so that when somebody comes in here and says, I want to build a, you know, a commercial building in town, okay, this is what you need to do.
Right. And see the check marks right there, whether
And we
they,
all have the same checklist.
right.
That checklist
When they,
should be
when they
carried
leave,
by the
when they leave the
petitioner
planning
from
board, they
meeting to
should
meeting.
have a letter from the planning board stating what they have, what you guys gave them, what you guys improved.
Prime example is the one tonight. Everybody's got a different
I
story,
mean,
you know?
what you guys
I don't
approved.
recall what we-
Yeah, and it's
No,
impossible
I'm
for you
not-
to remember.
What you guys approved, he should have that letter with him.
Right.
Send it to the zoning board, then the zoning board looks it over, okay. If there's a very, you know, deviation.
Including it
from-
in our file, included it in their file, and like Dan said, it should be a packet that goes with them from department to department.
Well,
Any
already
project in
with
town should have all the same stuff in it. Some will be applicable to you, some won't, depending on the project you're doing.
But-
But there should be a complete
But
checklist
not
packet.
not even that they carry, that we send.
Oh, yeah,
Internal.
but I mean, as a,
But
if they have a
So
copy and we have a,
same.
It should be in that
right,
packet.
and if they have a
when it comes-
copy and we have a copy, there can be no
And
question.
they should reconcile with each other. And that way, nothing ever gets missed ever again.
Let's do that.
We almost need like
I think it's a good idea, at least make up a list to go from there, and then we'll,
I mean, when's your next meeting?
the 12th.
Do you have a lot on there right now?
I think it's just 2 things so far, 2 appointments. The one that, tonight.
I mean, we could shoot for that, you know, I'll go back to the planning board and see if that works.
All right, and in the meantime,
'Cause the
maybe,
sooner we can do it, the sooner things.
Is it something the selectmen have to approve, or we can just do it, or? Okay.
this is between the boards. Actually, that's what they said at the
But we're
selectmen's
talking-
meeting.
But we're talking about a checklist that's gonna encompass everything.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be subject for their review, but I mean, even they at the meeting said, suggested that the boards get the- Oh, absolutely. I would appreciate their input, the more the merrier, you know? But let's do
I'm not
that.
saying exclude anybody, and
Oh, exactly.
conservation could be included as well.
Yep. Have our building inspector review it too and add something that he thought, and conservation, and I think it's a work in progress would have to go. Let's say we might have missed because Board of Health would go, oh my goodness, that has to be in there. You know, the more input, the better. It can't be too much, I wouldn't think.
And what you're gonna be facing right now is gonna be, you got a 40B coming. from-
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
And that's all on you guys' shoulders. I mean, you can reach out and ask for some help. Gladly help with taking a look at the plans,
Yeah. Well, I think that,
drainage and all of that stuff like we've done in the past for the other
Right.
projects that actually didn't even happen
excuse me.
numerous times.
Good. Let's do that. Either that or we'll try to get something together by the next meeting, or try to at least put something together and starting point anyway.
So that would be the 12th, would be the second Monday?
Yes,
And
Friday's the 12th.
second.
Not to
When are you meeting?
then we meet the 1st, and we meet the 15th, so maybe if that meeting didn't work, maybe the 15th could work with us. You know, it'll be the same week.
All right, let's try that.
So I'll go back to the board, are you guys
you guys are all gonna be at your meeting.
Right.
Would you be available for the 15th if it didn't work?
Yeah, could you put a notation on that, Alana, and then maybe zip me out a reminder so I don't remember, because I'm good like that.
So the plan is to meet, the planning board, to come to the zoning board meeting on the 12th,
To the 12th, I'll ask them,
as long as it's okay.
and
right?
then if the board here is willing to meet with us on the 15th, that would give us the 2 dates to
Okay,
to
sure.
try to, if you guys are good with that,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
the 15th,
Good stuff.
that way I can go back with them in 2 days.
Awesome. How's that look? You got questions on that?
Actually, I do, and actually Gordon might be able to answer them best. So corner lots, I've always been under the impression that the frontage is on both streets.
50 on both.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, frontage on both.
But the
The setbacks
150 feet, do you only need it on one road?
on both.
You need it on both. Because actually, the corner lot on River and Pratt, it's 127. So,
Yeah, but that's Form A, so you only need 150 feet to cut a Form A off. It's different because it's, a Form A isn't coming under subdivision control. If you're creating a corner lot for subdivision, then you're gonna maintain that 150.
so on this one here, was it all one lot and they created a bunch of lots? So wouldn't that still fall under the
That's
same?
Form A, because they have street frontage. There's
On both sides.
There's only 2 ways of creating a lot, and both of them have to go to plan.
Right,
One is through subdivision control.
Yeah.
Which you have to meet all the subdivision regulations. The other is a Form A, and somebody can come in with a Form A, as long as they have street frontage on an existing private way. It had to exist before our zoning came into effect, or on a public way. And the Form A does not guarantee that it's buildable, but you can get a sign from the planning board. What we're doing is we're giving
so you
an
go,
approval to the plan, which does not require subdivision control.
so you would only require the 150 on one road then? But if it was under subdivision, you need it on both roads because of creating the road?
Yeah, but when we sign that plan, that doesn't endorse that as making that a buildable lot. So
So-
if the zoning officer determines that they need 150 feet on both, then our signature on that plan for that Form A doesn't make it buildable.
Okay,
So somebody could come in and take, let's say they had 410 feet on the street, and they do 150, 150, and it leaves them 110. And we endorse that plan because they have frontage on the street.
Yeah.
So they have a right to use that frontage. It doesn't make that...
so just because it doesn't have the 150 feet, you can still approve it, doesn't mean it's a
We have
buildable
to
lot?
approve it, actually.
Because they have a right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
but our endorsement of that plan does not make those buildable lots. I mean, if they put all the requirements on there, then they go to the zoning officer, and he looks at it, all the zoning requirements are met, then it's buildable.
yeah.
But our signature doesn't constitute zoning. I mean, if we see something that's off, then we'll say, you know, if you want to do this as a buildable lot,
Right.
then you're gonna have to change your layout.
That's why we've seen plans where there's 3 lots, 150, 150, 143, you know, the problem.
Yeah, to us, we see it as a problem.
Yeah. When it gets to.
Well, it's not a problem, I mean, that's the lot.
That's the lot, right?
But if they want
But
to
they
put,
can use it because they have more than 50 feet for a retreat lot.
right, but if they want to do your regular typical house, they don't have the 150 of it. So then they can't build a house. They would need a variance. So like Dan's example, if they did 150, 150, and 143, they want to put a house on 143, they can't.
If they have 80,000 square feet, they can.
Right, but if they don't, if it's a typical 40,000 square feet, they can't put a house.
Yikes.
So that's, you know, that's the difference on whether something is buildable or not.
Good to know.
Today's lesson.
Please listen.
All
You
right.
drove here to do it.
All right. Any other business, any questions? We good?
You have to sign any more papers before we leave?
Comprehensive permit was amended by Attorney Kessler. So so I didn't know if you wanted to approve it, to accept it. It's in there.
It's in there.
It should be at the very back.
You missed
Right
it back,
there.
yeah. It's in the very back.
She snuck it in the back. She's good. Oh, the one that says Halifax Zoning Board of Appeals Rules and Regulations for Comprehensive Permit.
Yeah.
That was amended, what's the date on that?
It was amended by Amy, sorry.
Put it on the last
I
page.
read it. Don't ask me if I remember it. There's a lot.
Yikes. 12 pages, correction 13. Have they received a copy of this, do you know? The applicant, or the soon-to-be applicant?
The applicant received a copy of it before it was amended.
Okay. And they also got or have they received or even applied for the
No.
application packet checkoff list?
Not yet.
Okay. So we're just making these available. Yikes.
I did read through this. You know, it's just what it says right on there, comprehensive.
40B.
Yikes. Okay, we also have a copy of the Old Colony Planning Council agenda. If anybody wants to peruse this, minutes in the agenda. And from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Office of the Attorney General, a letter from July 3rd, 2019. It's a letter to Mr. Gordon Andrews on Elm Street in Halifax in regards to his filing with the Commonwealth of Mass Attorney General's office. We sent you a letter, I can read the whole thing, but we sent you a letter on May 17, 2018 stating that we did not receive the original complaint from you by June 10th. We would presume the action taken by the board was sufficient, would close this file. Our office currently has no record of a complaint filed by you in this matter. Therefore, we consider the matter closed. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or believe anything stated in this letter to be inaccurate. Came from Kerry Ann Kilcoyne, Assistant Attorney General, Division of Open Government. That was received July 8th, today, Zoning Board of Appeals. All right. Anything else?
Did you say
Did you want to approve that?
We need to know if we're going
Charlie
to
has
approve
suggested
this.
that, so.
So do we need everybody time to look at it, or?
I haven't had, did anybody have time to go through the 13 pages? No, we'll put that off until, put it on the next month's agenda and
You
in the
guys got it in your email,
Yeah,
right?
you haven't even.
Right,
Okay. Yep, next meeting.
yeah, I haven't gone through unless any other questions. All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
In a second.
Second.
So it's motion and second to adjourn the meeting of July 8th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, Alana. Thanks.